Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week of Slinging Seeds. I am your host, Kyle Evans, and this week we are going to take another look back into the archives as we sit down and review some of the coaches' advice. Last week we did players' advice. This week we decided we would like to go through some of the coaches and get the best possible advice out there for you guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Our first recap starts with Coach Kyle Weldon, recent coach of the Mason State Championship team, talking about what a daily schedule should look like for an athlete that wants to be recruited and play college baseball.
That's going to be different for different guys. You got multi-sport guys that their schedule is not going to look like somebody who's only focusing on baseball. You got guys that need to make huge jumps. You got guys that need to make minor jumps. I think my personal experience and how I approached it is going to be a lot different from other people, right? Like, I lived in the cage. Some guys aren't going to live in the cage. I do think if you're not playing another sport, a 3 to 5 day schedule is probably appropriate through the winter months. If you are playing another sport, you're trying to do as much to maintain what you've got, and then the early part of the winter, when basketball's done and you're getting into baseball, you're pounding it pretty hard. I think it's just so different based on who the athlete is. But you should be lifting a lot. You should be eating a lot. You should be training a lot. I'll just say a lot. Yeah. Especially with how competitive it's gotten now. Like, with the change in the roster, and I don't want to jump too far ahead in this conversation, but with the change in the rosters and what's happening at the highest level of Division I baseball and how that's trickling down, it's getting more competitive everywhere. Not just in Division I, but that's all trickling down as well. So physicality is super important. Being able to get as close to your man body as you can, as fast as you can, is important in the recruiting process now, because guys don't have 2 years to let you come in and hang out and hit the weights. They need guys that are going to be depth pieces behind. They're an injury or two away on a 34-man roster from needing somebody to step in and play. They can't bring you in to just sit around for 2 years and lift, right? So you got to get that done early and get as close as you can to your man body.
What a great piece of advice from PBR director Kyle Weldon. Next, we move on to Brandon Rexon, who's the head coach at Northmont High School. Brandon gives us some small insights about recruiting and his point of view.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like, at the highest level, the Division I route, like, it's a numbers game, right? Like, I mean, the Division I teams are getting older. I think last year I saw a stat that, like, the average age of a Division I roster was like 21 and a half.
Yeah.
And so guys that maybe 5 years ago would have been Division I recruits, committed,
no doubt.
whatever, just aren't there anymore. A guy like Jameer Ross last year, who the number of coaches that 5 years ago, we'd take him in a heartbeat. Now we'll keep an eye on him at JUCO and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think the other part of that is the educational part with the parents and the players. So, like, end of summer, early part of fall every year, like, those juniors and seniors that have that desire of playing college, like, we sit down with the parents and just kind of go over everything, like, explain how many different levels of college baseball there are, what, at each level, what scholarships are available, and what just what certain things to consider, right? Like, I think I'll ask kids, one of the first questions I ask is, geographically, where do you want to go? And all of them, like, I'll go wherever there's an opportunity. Okay, well, if Alaska Fairbanks calls you, are you gonna Is that is that a realistic thing you want to do? Well, no. It's like, okay, then we've got to start to consider, because I've also seen a number.
I was thinking Columbus.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, one of our seniors, Mason Wolf, he's going up to Bemidji State in northern Minnesota. And he's a guy that really was just looking for the right fit. I mean, wherever that was the right fit, and with Bemidji State's head coach being a Dayton guy, had a great relationship with him, and Mason went up there and just like, this is it. This feels comfortable.
Yeah, Davis Schaefer's my guy. The
Yeah,
recruiting coordinator.
Schaefer's awesome.
From Lakota. I mean, obviously I coached against him when he was a player, when he was playing for Connect.
Yeah.
And over at Brant Field. Growing up with Zach Farmer and those guys of that team. So, yeah, no, Davis is my guy up there. We talk all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, so that was a good fit. It's more or less just trying to get the players and the families to kind of understand all the different things that need to be factored in. Like, if you are going to go 6, 7, 8 hours away, like, you're probably not coming home for Thanksgiving, right? Your mom and dad probably aren't going to come down and take you out to dinner for your birthday. And some guys thrive in those types of environments where they kind of have to redefine their support system and their friend group, whereas other people can struggle in it. So it's really just about trying to find, the right fit from a college standpoint, where it's, educationally, obviously baseball's a part of it, financially, which I think is another big part of it. I mean, what I don't want to do is put guys in situations at colleges that financially doesn't make sense, and I think that's a part that, probably in the coaching realm, it can be a gray area whether or not you want to dive into that side of it with the families, because that can be kind of a taboo topic at times. But I think part of that goes back to just the relationships you have with the parents. Like, hey, I'm just trying to find the right fit. Like, if $60,000 a year isn't on the table, if that's not feasible, let's not look at those schools.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just the educational part of it that's there.
yeah, so
I think that's some good insight from Coach Rexon. Definitely hitting on the educational piece and how important it is in choosing your journey and choosing your path for college. Next, we have a pair of college coaches that are going to give us their point of view on what they're looking for when they come out to see a player.
So when you show up to see a pitcher, right, what is it that you're looking for when you show up and see that guy for the first time? What is it that somebody does something and you go, okay, yeah, that's it? Like, what's that little thing that always kind of catches your attention?
Well, outside of the obvious strikes, right? But is tempo. If a guy is in control of the game, it always stands out. A guy that it feels like it's suffocating for hitters. Like those guys that they always stand out a little bit. I mean, like we said at the beginning, I like athletes. I like clean arms. And I like, the ability to throw multiple pitches for a strike, right? Those are all things I think almost every coach kind of has. But I'll tell you right now, when a guy can really control the little things, the tempo, how he holds runners, and it feels like he's driving the bus of that game, it stands out. No matter if they have those things or not, it does stand out, right? So you kind of go, I kind of like that, like maybe there's something there. Like that's something for me that really always, I don't think enough kids do it.
Okay.
Personally, I think that you got a lot of guys who think a lot in between pitches, and I think that they take their time or they move slow, and that's, some people love that style. I don't,
Yeah.
So I guess if right states of places, I don't like guys that work super slow. I don't like guys that look like little things bother them, and obviously that is a reality. Is I know some people say that's not, but if a guy's got a bad attitude on the mound, I ain't touching him. I might go see him again to see if it's better, but how do you respond to adversity? Do I expect you to be perfect? Absolutely not. Some of these kids are 16, 17. I'm not expecting them to be Nolan Ryan's or whatever. I'm expecting them to be able to show me a response. And learn a little bit something. If they have a bad response, it doesn't mean I'm not going to call them, but I'm going to ask them about the response. I want to get into their head a little bit, right? But I'll tell you right now, when guys, man, they're in control of their tempo, they're working fast, they're filling it up, those things, they always stand out. Because then you start going, all right, what's the stuff look like? All right, the stuff's pretty good. All right, what's this? And then all of a sudden you're walking over to the dugout hey, what do you got on this guy, coach? Just those are the things from a pitching standpoint that really stand out to me.
yeah. So a lot of times when I'm going out, it doesn't always happen this way, but usually I'm calling the coaches before I go watch the players. The two biggest questions are the grades, not everyone needs to be a 4.0 student. There's going to be some guys that aren't big school guys, and that's okay. But at least I want to know that they're passing their classes. They're going to class like they have the minimum requirements, so that I'm not wasting my time going out there.
Yeah.
The second thing is just about the kid. What kind of kid is this kid? What kind of teammate is he? I mean, it's people don't. I think people hear that we ask these questions, and some of the kids like don't believe it. But like I ask, what they're like in the dugout, what they're like to their parents, like are they on time? Call the high school coach. And is he a leader? Does he talk? Does he show his teammates up? Does he have energy? So all these questions kind of go into, do I even want to go watch this kid?
Yeah.
So I think they have to pass just the basic good human and hard worker and good student categories before I even like want to show up. And obviously there's some kids that you don't plan on seeing, you just kind of see, and then you have to dig after. But preferably I like to dig before. That way I'm not wasting my time, not wasting their time. But just really looking for good humans first, and kids that are serious about playing baseball. And then by chance, if I see a kid that looks really good and I need to find more about, I have no problem like going up to coaches and asking them the information, because I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And there's your D1 advice from Coach Travis Farrick at Wright State and Coach Pete Sass at University of Dayton. Next, we have a special relationship that's been cured through Doug Adams and Jerry Sawyers. And in this clip, we're going to see how important it is to curate that relationship between a player and coach, as Jerry Sawyers will explain.
I remember you came and watched us at Purcell Marion, Dayton Christian. It's the one high school game that you came to that I've coached, and it meant a lot to me. And I remember we hit a ground ball to first in pregame, and Noah came up and threw the ball to third base. And you came up after pregame and said, "Tell me when he's going to make that throw." Right? And I didn't have an answer for you because that play never happens. I mean, not very often anyway. And I said, so since then we always have our first baseman go to second because that's a play that consistently could happen. And I remember in that game we got off to a real bad start. We were down like 7-0, and you walked by the dugout, and we had maybe scored a run or two, and you came by the dugout and you said, "Hey, I gotta go. It's great to see you. You guys are gonna win this game, by the way," and laughed, and you walked away. And we did. We came back and won the game 13-11, which amazed me that you could call that. But you see the game as good as anyone. So when you see these coaches out here, what advice would you give to these coaching staffs? Or that head coach that really does care, really is passionate. What advice would you give to him to be successful?
Well, I think what helped me a lot was I would have a booklet. Every Friday, the player would go to the tab in my booklet. There'd be 3 questions. How was your week? When you tried this, how did this turn out? When you did that, how did that turn out? And what helped, I think, is that if I'm here talking to my player, I'm a man, I'm a big man, and although he's a young man, I'm still intimidating. And you're not going to get that honest answer. When you have a situation like that, he can feel free to put his answers down. I'll give you a quick example. It was my Rawlings program, and I had just a great young man, went to Lakota West, played for Bill down there, and his name was John Oliver. And he put down in there, he said, we called him Ollie. So he put down there, "I wish you'd have stayed with me. I had this game under control." I read it, gave it a few minutes. I thought, how am I going to address this? So I held, pitchers they didn't hit. They're just in the outfield shagging balls. We hope they don't cleat themselves, you know what I mean? And I said, "Hey, Ollie, come here a minute." And he went and he saw I had, "Oh, coach, I'm sorry." I said, "Let me show you something." Okay. I said, here's where you were in that game. The next 2 guys, they both had not only a hit, but they hit the daylights out of the ball, even though you got them out. And I just felt it was time to go to someone else. In this case, a lefty. Remember, we went with Brad. He said, I do. And I said, look at the book of yourself. Look at the book yourself. What would you have done? He said, I had no idea. I said, that's why I'm the coach. And he actually shared that with his teammates because he thought, you know what, this guy actually gives a hoot. You know what I mean? And so I think right there, you have to find your own little niche, if you will, of how can I get closer to these young people? Because they have so many things going on in their life. They got their schooling, they got their girlfriend, they got their job, they got their girlfriend, they got their car, they got their girlfriend. You know? and so it's difficult. So you have to find your way as a coach to just, how can I fit in on this? How can I help this young man develop? You know, and I think one of my secrets with pitchers and especially was if one of my guys came in here now, I can guarantee we'd hug each other because we grew that type of relationship. And I could say, we'll say his name, hey Tommy, yeah coach, what's your favorite pitch? He'd say strike one, because you set the tone at that at bat. And it's just amazing that I tried to do it in a gentlemanly, non-confrontational way that they allowed to buy into it and grip it and say, that makes sense. Again, it comes back to explain the why. Not because I said so, but it's going to help you. If it helps you, it helps us.
Having Coach Sawyers in the facility and speaking about his wisdom in coaching was very memorable, almost like it was yesterday. Moving on next, we will be listening to Doug speak about his passion with the program in which it currently sits and how we run things here at P413.
Well, you get to allow players to reach a dream. You know, their dreams to play college baseball. So for us to be the best versions of ourselves as a staff, as an organization, we have to help every player that has that dream of playing college baseball. We want to place all of them, right? So that's where we're at. So I mean, obviously, recruiting's hard, especially now with all the new rules and stuff. But I would say my passion for recruiting is simply when you get to see that kid get an offer he didn't think he could get. And it's special. A good example is we had a kid this fall committed to a school. I'll be honest, I told him not to commit to it. He didn't listen. He committed, and then we had to have a conversation and talk about a decommitment. And then he continued to grow, and now he's in a really, really good situation for him. Not that the other situation wouldn't have been fine. I just think long term it's probably a little better for him. And that's not a shot at any school, but like that's the thing, right? It's about them reaching their top potential. So yeah, no, I mean I love recruiting because of what it does for our players.
Yeah.
Right. Now,
As Doug gives us his insight on recruiting, we now fast forward to our recent episode with Doug when he accepted the Clark State job and now is actively recruiting players in college baseball. Here is that clip from that episode.
Recruiting has changed, and now how this job will help you be able to place a new group of guys at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a great question. I think the biggest thing is right now, like when you were coming out of high school, there were multiple D1 schools in on you. You know what I mean? And so you had your pick. I mean, we've had some other guys same way, right? And that's just not the case now. You know what I mean? So like, I'm not saying you can't go D1 out of high school, but when you go from where the rosters were at 42, 40, whatever to 34, I mean, that's 8 a team off the D1 roster, right? And the other thing is because there's no longer this where you have to sit out if you transfer and all this, you're always trying out for your next opportunity, right? So I mean, let's be real. So if you're a college coach, let's say you're at some D1 in Ohio, right? And you got a high school kid who looks the part, athletic, really, really, looks good. You're like, man, he's a really good player. Or you can go get this guy who just hit 350 in the MAC. Like, who you calling? You know what I mean? So they go to the MAC. So now what that does is it starts a trickle effect. So let's say that MAC guy goes to the Big Ten because he hit 350. Well, what's the MAC school going to do? Well, now we're going to go get a Horizon guy or a D2 guy, or you know what I mean. Sometimes, and in some instances, a D3 guy at the mid majors, right? Which I know Wright State did some this year with you guys. You had some D3 guys, so now they go down to D2, D3, and those guys go up. So now what happens at the D2, D3? Well, now it trickles down. Now they're pulling in some bad NAI programs, some JUCO programs, and all that. And now what happens at the small levels of JUCO, NAI, or the bad D3? They take anybody in the world, right? Because they got to fill a roster. And so now as a high school kid, what are your options? Well, you're probably not going to beat out that guy unless you're that. I mean, if you're a draft candidate, I get it, right? And I'm not saying we don't have guys in the 26 class that won't go D1. I think there's a chance a couple do. And we've worked really hard to create those relationships, and those kids have worked really hard at their game to try to get to where they need to be. So I think we probably will have one or two, but there was a time where you could have 4 or 5, right? And you can't anymore. So now they got to decide, okay, back in the day, if you think you're a D1 guy and you can't get it, you went JUCO, right? And that was the option. You went JUCO so you could transfer right away. Well, now you don't necessarily have to. Maybe you go D2, and now you can transfer D1, right?
Especially with the portal.
Right. I mean, you look at Jackson Duncan as a perfect example, right? With he went to D2 out of high school, and now then he went to a D1, right? He went to a JUCO, and then he went to UD, and now he's in the portal again and looking for another option, right? And I think it'll work out well for him. I think there's a couple of good options that we're working on, but like I said, so I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is you have to understand as a high school kid, okay, if my dream's to be a Division I player, right? Let's be real. I want to be a D1 player. Well, what's the only way you can be a Division I player as a high school kid? Well, you can get there out of high school, which is extremely difficult, or you have to go somewhere where you can play, right? If you're a high school kid and you're a really good player, and say you go to a really good Division II, but you're the 5th outfielder, well, you can't transfer D1 anymore because you ain't on the field, right? So where do you choose? So you have to know where you can play, right? Where can I go play?
Yeah.
Right. And that's tough for some guys because some guys are like, no, I want to go win a championship. I don't care about playing. Right. And some guys are like, I don't care if I ever win a game. I want to play every inning. Right. And you have to have those conversations. But now you're like, okay, well, what is the highest level that you can go play every day? And then give yourself that opportunity if you choose to. And then again, as I've told a lot of guys, maybe you go to this certain D2 and you think it's a transition school, right? And then you stay there for 4 years. There's nothing wrong with that either. So I mean, I think that's the biggest difference is that you have to understand that you have to get on the field early in your career if you want to have the opportunity to reach your top dream.
Next, we have current Director of Player Development at Akron and former interim head coach at Lake Erie, Coach Mike Eversole, discussing the importance of player development and character development. This episode aired just over a month ago before Eversole suddenly became the head coach, and a couple days before the season even started, eventually had knocked off number 11 UNC Pembroke in the opening weekend. Coach Eversole led the Storm to its best season in 6 years with third most wins in school history. With all of the great accomplishments that Coach Eversole had put through the program at Lake Erie, we are just really excited to see what he holds to a high regard. And he had mentioned that player development and character development were one of those things. So sit back and enjoy this clip.
How high you guys hold character development?
I mean, I feel like that's just as important as playing. You know, like we need guys to do the right things. They need to do it often. They need to understand what accountability actually is. They need to understand that there's discomfort in holding your teammates accountable. You can still be, good friend to somebody and still have to get on him. There's a lot of power in saying, hey, we don't do those things here. So I think just like teaching guys the proper verbiage, I think teaching guys about the timing in which to do X, Y, and Z things, I think instilling like perspective. Hey, I understand what your intentions were, but could you see how this was taken negatively? Like we talk about those things constantly. And again, like I think it just teaches our older guys more and more every year to just have the right intention. Sure, they're still young adults, right? They're going to make mistakes. They have flaws. Even us as coaches, we have flaws.
For sure.
But our players are also confident enough to hold us accountable, and that's my favorite thing. Hey, like your body language wasn't good. That's why so-and-so took that. And I'm like, man, I didn't realize that, And as a coaching staff, I feel like we're able to do that too. But it just gives us a lot of perspective. So character development is everything. I mean, how you represent yourself in the classroom, playing for your family, obviously playing for your teammates, We have kids from the big towns, we have guys from the small towns. So, like, not forgetting where you came from along the way in the process, I think that matters too. But there's just a million ways to skin the cat, and I think our approach to it with each guy, or a certain group of guys, if there's similarities, right? It just comes down to just their understanding and maybe how you can reach them, and that instills maybe our coaching style into certain guys. We know what guys we can stop the practice and let them know across the field. There's guys that we got to be a little more reserved, pull them aside, but it's all about maintaining that buy-in and that trust, and meeting those guys halfway, because, again, it goes back to what we tell them. It is their team. It is their program. And as coaches, when you lose games, it's on us, but when they win, it's because they're the best team in baseball right now. And we actually, we really buy into that with them. They don't act like that, don't get me wrong, but we kind of make it in a way where it's just like, yeah, man, it's because of you guys. You guys won today because of you guys. You guys won today because you guys were unselfish and you executed, and you really value just playing at your home field today. Or, man, like, that's how you get on the road and just, take it from somebody at their place. So there's just been a lot that's been instilled with that. And, there's a lot that actually, car ride down here, was on the phone with one of our seniors, Graham Solak, and we're talking about, obviously, his off season, how the family's been with Christmas break and stuff like that so far. And it's just like, but we spent a ton of time just talking about how we're going to approach this and how just far the program has come since he's even been here, what we're going to do, what to look forward to. And it's just, we maybe share too much sometimes with our guys, but I want them to just consistently stay bought in and value winning, and more importantly, value each other.
I think Coach Eversole hits home there, speaking on the character development piece and how important it is in players and how you coach. Next, he also hits on another piece that I feel that rings very true, and it's how grand PBR is in our state and how they emphasize the players in Ohio. So enjoy this next clip from that episode.
The junior state game, so seen a lot of young players, and I'm just always reminded when I go to different events that I do think that we have really good players in the state of Ohio. Simple as that. I think we have good coaches, and I think Weldy. I'm biased though, so I think he absolutely crushes it, and I think I always said it. Like when Jordan Cairo stepped down from the position, I just don't think the brand skipped a beat. I think it just continued on the path that it needed to give players just continued opportunities in the state. And Top Prospect Games was the first event that I worked this summer, so we were at Jennings Park, and they had two fields set up going, and it was different. It was, I think that's fair to say, it was very different because I'm on the inside of that environment where everybody who I had opportunities to compete against is on the outside. And just being able to see guys, I think, was probably the number one thing I needed, was just seeing other coaches and kind of reconnect a little bit. But on top of it too, just kind of, just get back and have enough humility to feed a hack attack and maybe, feed the machine and get things set up, and just kind of being back in that environment. I think it humbles you. But I also think that there's continued professional development to be around it, just different guys, like staffing could always be different, right? So, like you're working with one guy who has coached before, but then, the guy to your left or right is, like a young kid who like is just like fresh out of college that wants to get into coaching. And it's just, I think just having that, because there are downtimes, during the events sometimes, whether it's like in between games or if we're in between sessions or whatever it is, you kind of get that opportunity to talk a little bit. And I think it's just really cool to not just be like in a recruit mode during that. I think it's cool to actually be able to sit back and evaluate and trying to just learn, more things. Like PBR has every piece of technology that you could really think of. So just been trying to dive more into just TrackMan and understand the different stuff with that, what certain people look like. I've spent a lot of time talking with Hutch the last. We haven't talked like this week or even last, but it was like we went through like a stretch where we were in touch pretty often, and just kind of hearing what maybe some people look at just at the pro level. Hey, like you're an offensive guy, like how much pitching can you actually learn, whether you got to or not. It's just like make yourself well rounded, give give yourself your own opportunity to ever expand your portfolios and stuff. So just been trying to dive into the TrackMan a little bit, and Chris Valentine is, I mean, he's awesome. Super grateful for him because just made one phone call and it was just like, yeah, man, like get you back involved, and yeah, and texted him to, after these events this week, and was just like, hey man, just don't want to go unnoticed, but very grateful for you. And I talk to Weldy all the time, about random things, and I think it's important to still take the time, shoot him a text, and just say, hey man, thanks again, see you next week. And but I think it's even cooler to just see just a lot of players in our state, man. I think we got a lot of good players, and I think with adjustments that the high school players maybe had to experience in recruiting, I think some handle it really well. I think some naturally, maybe struggle, or maybe it comes from just a lack of education on the whole process and stuff. But yeah, man, I think our players work hard, and I think there's a lot of coaches that come to the events, and they're always trying to make the programs better. It's just nice to see people out there punching the clock, man, for them, and I thought this year at TPG, I didn't, at least on the field that I was on each day, I just didn't feel like I saw players like stressing out to do well. I thought it was just like, hey, like we just played this weekend and I got to go out and just kind of make the most of this opportunity. And, we're going to different events where, coaches are going to be at. And it's just, that's what PBR is, man. It's just an opportunity to showcase yourself and showcase your skills. And I think those kids deserve that. But on the flip side, PBR obviously has the right personnel to do it really well in our state. I think that's why, maybe biasly, I think Ohio, on the prep side, I think they're one of the best. So
I, for one, absolutely love PBR and what they do for the players in our state. Moving on, we will be paying some homage to Charles Hunnell. In this clip, you will be listening to Zach Trent and Doug Adams give their synopsis of who Charles Hunnell was to the program and to the players and to everybody overall.
You could speak better to this than I can, but from what I was able to gain from maybe it's passion, maybe it's just pure love, love for the game, love for everything that he wasn't even really involved in. He just loved being there. He loved the kids. He loved his grandson. He loved his family. He just truly enjoyed the game of baseball and watching youth kids be able to play it. And his passion was to be able to have kids not be held back. It just so many different ways that he was not going to let someone not be able to play. He was not going to have someone go without. That family still makes donations to our program to help, any way they can. I mean, we have Charlie's Clubhouse here to be able to help, get to families that need it. And to see that and to be able to be a part of that and to watch it continue on now that, his great grandsons are playing through it. It's just um, it's an incredible thing. The backstory is Casey Clapp, who played for us, 2012.
We'll graduate, right?
He
Or
grad,
20, yeah, 20,
so he
2012
came to us in
graduate.
what year did he come to us?
2010.
2010.
Yep.
Yep, came to us in 2010. It's Casey's grandpa. And from that point, I think he was a grandpa that was coming. It evolved into a grandpa that's still coming. To Casey doesn't play for us. Oh wait, grandpa's still still here. And kind of became family to a lot of us outside of the game, which was incredibly special. I mean, like I said, you could speak more to it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've spoken about Charlie on here before, but Charlie was phenomenal. Casey played for us 2010, 2012, and then went to UC. Had a couple of recruiting chances. Didn't like, with being an engineering major, it's really, really tough. You know what I mean? It's very, very hand-picked schools that you can go to and play with an engineering major. So, you got to figure out if those are the fits for you, and if they aren't, that's okay. So he ends up going to UC, can't play anymore, right? Just going there for school, loves the game, starts coaching, and uh, Charles and Marlene never left, right? We would go all over the country. They would go to Nashville every year. They would go to Georgia with us. They traveled everywhere, and they'd be the first ones there and the last ones to leave. And they would, for multiple years, sponsor a kid and pay their player fee and try to help them if they couldn't afford it. I've seen them cover hotels for a family for the whole year. If it was a family that struggled to travel. When I first had Casey, I mean, I guess Casey would have been 16U. I probably was 25, I'm guessing, maybe a little younger. And he, I would get to a hotel room, and I don't know how he did it, but I'd get to a hotel room, and there would be spending cash, and say, when we go out to eat, you're going too. And there would be an envelope in my hotel room when I got there, and there would be spending cash for dinner that night. So when the team went out, I could go too. And he just did so much for so many other people, and he was so passionate about our program, and so passionate for what we were doing in our program, and the players that were in our program. And so when we had a chance to host a tournament, that was after he passed away. It just made all the sense in the world to name it after him.
Moving on, we go to our next clip with Coach Nate Metzger, where he talks about giving feedback to players after camps. We hold this in high regard and very respectful, because it gives the kids a baseline on what to work with and what to work for, and to kind of have an idea of where they can go in college.
One of the things I've always appreciated the most about your recruiting process, and it's phenomenal, and I wish everyone would do it, but they just don't, is after our guys would come to a camp, whoever it was, whether you were interested or whether they were the worst player at your camp, you would send an email and you would give them a paragraph or two, right? Sometimes more in depth, and saying, I like this. You got to do this. You need to work on this.
Sure.
You need to work. And I'm curious how you started doing that. And second, thank you for doing that, because then a player would come back to me and said, Met said this, 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 and this. And we would never talk about the positives you gave them, obviously. They would always talk about the things we need to improve on. But it gave our players a plan of attack.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I know you ended up recruiting Ben. I guess I can say you ended up recruiting Alec, who's now signed, so I guess I can say that. But like,
Sure.
you gave both of those guys when they were young, when they were freshmen, and they were coming to your camps, and Wright State was their dream scenario. You need to get here. You need to do this.
Yeah.
What made you start doing that? And I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciated that you did.
I think, man, I don't want to be oversimplified with this answer. And I can be, as I've already been, a little long-winded. But
Hey, this is a show.
no, yeah. Man, if it was my kid, right? If it was my son, what would I mean, just do unto others, man. Like give, like just take the time. And I just always thought, if somebody emailed me, and I will say, with our camp stuff, we would always tell the players, you guys have to reach out first. Like,
sure.
If you want the information, I'll give it to you, but I'm going to make you at least jump through that hoop, right? Yeah. And so when they would email, and typically guys probably, word got out, hey, he'll respond. So definitely, contact.
I know I told our guys
Right. But it's just, if a kid's going to come to camp and take the time to be interested in, our program, then I just felt like that was the least that we could do is provide, some honest feedback, and just give those guys some help, along the way. And, you try to be open and honest, but obviously, somewhat gentle, about that approach too. And, just help guys. Like I said, if it was my son or daughter, I would want them, I'd want somebody that, did it right, did it well, treated them, with respect. So,
Yeah,
I'd have to say that would be one of my most favorite episodes that I recorded with Coach Metzger. It was a complete enjoyment. But next we move on to Coach Tony Capel, and why he holds the freshman level so important to his heart. So enjoy this next clip.
What is it about the freshman level that really fills you up with joy?
The kids. It's scary coming into a program, right? Your first year of high school, especially a school as big as Oak Hills, you have 700 kids in your freshman class. The school is huge. You're walking the hallways, lost, confused. And now you're going into the baseball program. Some of them play other sports. You got guys that have already played a sport, but some of them, this is the first sport they've played. And these kids, need some guidance. They need help getting to that next level. And to me, there's no better feeling than knowing that you're able to help a kid get to the next level. And it's the same with USA Baseball. Like I mentioned, Miles, seeing him do well, Reggie do well, these other kids that when they come to the tryouts and you can advance them to that next round. The Oak Hills freshman team is basically the same way to me. I can help them with their fundamentals. I can prepare them for what they're going to need when they make it to the junior varsity and the varsity team. And I can help with the mindset, which the mental part of this baseball world is often forgotten. Help them with that mindset of how do I prepare for high school baseball? And just like the fundamentals, teaching those kids at 9, 10, 11, and 12 years old, they get to that high school level. And you've seen kids at the high school level. We get kids that some of them don't know a whole lot.
No. Yeah, you ain't lying.
They need that development. They need to learn the fundamentals. And that's the type of stuff I like to teach. And the best feeling is when you see a kid buy in to what you're teaching and develop and grow to advance to the next level. So
yeah, it's absolutely incredible.
Lastly, we get into the culture of we. Coach Mark Adams, who had a tremendous season with the Miami Middletown Thunderhawks, gives us a little bit of insight on what the culture of we really is.
Tell a high school viewer how important it is to buy in to the culture of wherever you are. I think that they really need to hear that.
Yeah, I first of all, thank you for the question because it's near and dear to our heart. We have 3 goals, and those 3 goals dictate all of our actions. Okay, and again, we are a different college baseball program. We're not going to apologize for that. Our number 1 goal, non-negotiable, is 100% graduation. That's our number 1 goal. Okay, so what does that mean to our culture and the way that we run our program? Every Tuesday, I meet with every player one-on-one for 15 minutes, and we review academic progress. And that's not a time we talk about, hey, we need you to get on base more. We don't talk about baseball. We talk about academics and their personal life in those one-on-one meetings. That's the best day of my week, of those Tuesdays. And it happens every single week that we review those things. So that's one thing about 100% graduation. We only play games on weekends. We don't play during the week because I don't want our guys to miss class. If your number 1 goal is 100% graduation, then as a coach, we need to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Now, I'm not making any judgment about other teams that play during the week. I get it, but for our culture, we play on weekends. We play a fall schedule that counts. We play on weekends. We play a spring schedule that counts. We play on weekends. So I spread it out into 2 different seasons so that we don't play during the week. And that's what I love about the USCAA. They allow us to do that. Because fall is the best time to play baseball. Why we play baseball in spring, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's too cold.
I mean, I understand because of football and everything else, but so that's number 1 is graduation. Okay, yeah. And every guy knows that. And oh, by the way, I've been head coach for 3 semesters. Our team average GPA is a 3.15.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And all of our guys are on track to graduate, including a couple guys. One kid from Hamilton, they told me he'd never graduate. Guess what? Next spring, he'll graduate with an associate's degree.
Great.
Yeah, in business. And it's at Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. No joke. So that's number 1. Then our second goal is to win a USCAA national championship. Now think about that. We can win at baseballs. Our second goal is to win a national championship. But if you don't paint the successful picture of what the long term looks like, and if you don't challenge your guys in that way, I think you're missing the boat as a coach. You might say, Mark, you are crazy. Miami Middletown will never win the national championship. Why not? I mean, we still have bats, we have baseballs, we have players. And if I recruit the right guys, we give ourselves a chance. And we are focused on that goal. But again, non-negotiable. Because while we win the national championship, we're going to do it with a culture of we. INAM.
Yeah.
It's not about me.
There you go.
It's not about me. It's culture we. And in baseball, as you guys know, baseball The disease of me can come along real quick.
Sure.
All right. Batting average, ERAs, mom and dad want me to get recruited, all that other extraneous crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not how we operate. I had a just recently had a young man, he missed a team meeting. Okay. It was a pretty big team meeting. And I only call team meetings once a month, once every 2 months. He missed it. It has to be our captain. Okay. I sat down with him because I wanted to hear from him first if he understood our culture. So I just asked him a simple question. I think this is good for coaches to do, by the way, when you're dealing with a disciplinary issue. Like, he didn't do anything bad. He missed a meeting, right? And our meetings, by the way, are like 6:45 in the morning. Okay? Our practice is 6:45 in the morning. So he comes in, I said, if you're head coach, you've now missed 2 team meetings. If you're head coach, what would you do? Great kid. But temporary brain cramp, right? He says to me, Coach, you can't suspend him. We play Hamilton on Friday. Oh, no, I can suspend you. If I am the keeper of the culture of we, then, and guess what? He's not going to play on Friday. In the first game against our arch rival. I don't care. I don't care about that game. I care about him for the rest of his life. And he's great, by the way. He'll be the guy cheering the most on the bench, but that's a real life example of how important our culture is to it.
Yeah.
And I pointed out this during that meeting. The first thing you talked about, you can't suspend me because we play Hamilton. It's not about me.
There you go.
It's about culture of we.
Yeah.
And do you think every player doesn't understand that? Because if I suspend our leadoff hitter and team captain for missing a meeting, how many meetings do you think the rest of those dudes are going to miss?
They're not going
to miss, right?
No.
Takes care of it. So those things are non-negotiable, okay? Which leads me to our third goal, which is all about that story. Better fathers, better husbands, better sons, better brothers, better teammates, better friends.
There you go.
That's our third goal.
Yeah.
So 100% graduation, okay? A USCA national championship, which we're working hard toward, and then the lessons of life, and graduate, be a great teammate, be disciplined, and all those other things take care of themselves. That's how we run our program. I have a great Tyree Foster, does a great job with our infield. Got Gene Lawley, who's with us now, was a state champion in high school and won championships at Middletown in high school. And now he's my pitching coach now. Joshua Lowe, who basically coached 10U baseball, Air Force veteran, gets it. He coaches our outfield. I have a great staff. Mitch Lawson's also helped us with our pitchers, and I take care of the culture. That's what I do. I manage everything else to take care of the culture.
No better way to end it off other than the culture of we. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. I just wanted to thank you guys for listening in on this week's episode. And if you guys want to hear and see more stuff like this, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And to never miss a social media notification, we are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All right. Have a good one.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.